Hello and welcome to HTML tutorials. In the last session, we learned about the history of HTML and basic programs of the HTML and some basic tags of HTML. Today we are going to discuss about HTML elements. What is a HTML element? An HTML element is defined by a starting tag. If the element contains other content, it ends with a closing tag. Before we understand the HTML element, we should know the difference between HTML tag and HTML element. When you see this, P is a paragraph opening tag and /P is a paragraph closing tag. And starting from P tag to /P tag, the whole piece of this line is called as an element. There are different kinds of HTML elements. One of them is HTML closing elements. What are these HTML closing elements? Because this element, in this example, you can see that it's a paragraph element. It's a paragraph tag is open here, and after a paragraph content, the /P paragraph tag is closed. This is called a closing HTML element. The same with the heading element H1. Heading 1, after the heading 1, we are closing the H1, and this is also called as the closing HTML element. And div. Div is also a HTML closing element. You can see that it is opened here, div, and it is closed here. Let's talk about the non-closing HTML elements. These are the non-closing HTML elements. IMG image, because you are not using two different kinds of opening and closing tags in this element. You close the tag right away. That is called as closing element. And HR is also a closing element, and BR is also a closing element. We are going to work with all these elements in the example so that you can understand it better. And the next variety of elements are nested HTML elements. What is a nested HTML element? If you put one element inside another element, that is called as nested HTML element. You can see an example here. Here in the body, you can see H1. We are putting a heading here. The content in the heading is this is italic heading, but we are putting I tag here, and we are closing the I tag that says this is an italic form. So let us try this example in the notepad, and let's try to run it in the browser and see the result. And this is the code here. I'll explain you the code again. We put this code with the title nested element example, and this title is in the head part, and then the body part starts here and the body part ends here, and we have the H1 here heading. And also we are going to discuss about one more example, that is one more nested element example, that is U. We are using underline element here, and we are using italic element here. So let us save this and try to run this in Chrome. Yes, you can see the output, and you can easily compare this output with the code here. And we said that H1, this is a H1, and we put one more element inside, that it is called nested element. We said that it should be in italic, so the browser displayed it as this part as italic, and the next one is in this paragraph we use one more nested element to get the output with an underline. So this U tag made a line under this particular word. So this form of writing tags, writing elements is known as nested elements. Our next topic is HTML attributes. What are the HTML attributes? An HTML attribute is a modifier of an HTML element type. An attribute either modifies the default functionality of an element type or provides functionality to certain elements type. What we will understand this when we try to implement it in our code. Let us see. In HTML syntax, an attribute is added to the HTML starting tag. Let us see what is it. In this example, you can clearly see that what is a HTML attribute. So we are assigning HTML attribute in the starting part of a tag. This is a paragraph tag and it should close here, but inside the paragraph starting tag we are saying that we want this particular part of a piece, like in this particular piece of this paragraph, to be aligned on the left side. So this is called a HTML attribute. And what are the attribute parameters? So there are two kinds of parameters are there. There are only two. The first one is the attribute name, the property you want to set. For example, if you want to put some content, you want to align some content somewhere, the alignment is a name of the attribute. And the next one is attribute value, the value of a property you want to set. For example, if you want to put that content in the center or right or left, that is a value. So an attribute made up of two parts. The first one is an attribute name, and we'll assign some value to that name. And what are the attribute characteristics? The first characteristics of HTML attribute is placed inside the element's opening tag. That we already saw this in an example. And attribute is made up of two parts. The first one is an attribute name, and the second one will put some value to that name. And a value should always put in the quotations. So you should use the double quotes to give that value. If not, that's an invalid value. The browser will never understand. And attributes are case insensitive. You don't need to use the lowercase or a higher case. There are no standards. You can use any alphabets, lowercase or higher for attributes. But the lower case is recommended as per the HTML standards. So let us see the code part again. So here in this code, we have three different paragraphs. The paragraph 1, this is a left. So we want to align this paragraph on the left side. So we are writing this. This is a left align. And we have one more paragraph. We want to put that in the center, and the third one in the right side. Let us try this code in a text editor. You can see the code here. We are saving this and run it in Chrome. Yes, you can see the output here. The first paragraph is on the left side, and second one is in the center, and third one is aligned on the right side. What are the different types of attributes? There are like three different kinds of attribute. One is a core attribute, and the other one is an internationalization attribute, and the third one is the generic attributes. Let us discuss about the core attributes. So core attribute is an ID. ID means identification. Here we will give an ID and a value to that ID so that we can recall that, because this ID is attribute, we are going to use this especially in CSS or JavaScript. So we are not going to too deep into this, because it will be, for beginners it's going to be a bit confusing. So I will discuss about the ID when we go deep into the HTML and CSS. And currently I'm just introducing like ID is one of the core attribute, and the other one is a title. Here we will give a title to this heading. So if you look at the code, it's a H3, it's heading 3, and title is hello HTML, title heading tag, and we closed it. So this is, we are assigning a title and a value to this particular heading. So let us try this code in our text editor. Okay, I copied this here and I saved it. Let us try to run this. So this will display like title heading tag, but the value that we assigned here, it will appear in a different way. Like, can you see that? The value that we assign here is a hello HTML, and when you move your cursor on the output, a small window is popping up saying hello HTML. So this title attribute used to give some additional information about a particular piece of content. And the next core attribute is a class. Class is almost similar to the ID, and we are going to deal with classes in CSS. Currently, we will not discuss about this. We'll talk about this topic in CSS. And the next one is style. Style is also from the CSS, but I'm going to execute this one because it's a simple code to show the difference. How this core attribute called style is going to work. Let us see. Okay, I'm pasting that code here. So this code is, it's a paragraph, and we gave a value here, the style value. The title is style, and we're giving a font family here. We are mentioning that we want an Arial font face, and we mentioned some color here, and the content is some text. You can say blah blah and blah. Okay, whatever it may be. And let us save this. So this particular piece should get the font family, Arial font family, and color that we give here. It's a red color. Let us see how it looks like. Yes. When you see the output, you will understand that this font face is different from the default font, and we gave some color here. And the next set of attributes are internationalization attributes. So what are these? It's a dir. This attribute tells us like how to align the text. Basically, the default form of aligning the text is from left to right, this one, but we can put the text from right to left also, because basically in the language Hebrew and Arab, they write from right side to the left side. Apart from those two languages, rest of most of them languages like English or any young language will write from left to right. But Hebrew and Arab, these two languages are different. When you're making those kind of websites which has a language of Hebrew or Arab, so you should use this attribute. Okay, let us try this code. Let us delete this alignment attributes. And here we are going to assign this dir attribute, saying dir, because this particular attribute should apply to the entire document. So we are writing this attribute in the HTML tag is equal to double quotes RTL. That means right to left. Left to right is default. You don't need to write, you need to mention that it is left to right, because every time when you write a code, you'll get output from left to right. But when you want right to the left, it's a special case, so you need to mention it. Save this, run. Yes, you can see the text aligned to the right side. And the next international attribute is lang. So we will mention that HTML language English. The lang attribute allows you to indicate the main language used in a document. But this attribute was kept in HTML only for backwards compatibility with the earlier versions of HTML. Now, presently, this attribute has been replaced by XML lang attribute in the new XHTML documents. And the next set of attributes are generic attributes. So, the first generic attribute is align. Where do you want to align the content? Right, left, or center? We already tried that example. So the next one is align. Actually, align attribute works in a horizontal direction, but align works on vertical direction. This is gone like aligns tags with the content top, middle, or bottom. And the next one is PG color. This attribute places a background color behind an element. There are three ways to give a color in HTML. The first one is numeric and hexadecimal and RGB values. We are going to know about this soon when we deal with colors. And the next one is background URL. Places a background image behind an element. We're going to see this soon too. And the next one is ID. It's a user-defined attribute. Names and elements used with cascading style sheet, that means CSS. So we will discuss about this when we deal with CSS. The next one is class. This is also user-defined, and this is also for CSS. And the next generic attribute is width. This is also a user-defined attribute. Specify the width of tables, images, or table cells. The next one is height. It's a numeric value and user-defined attribute. And specifies the height of the table, images of the table, or table cells. The last generic attribute is a title. This is also user defined. It pops up the title when you move your cursor on the particular piece of content that we tried in the earlier example. That's it for the day. I hope you enjoyed the session. We'll see you in the next session. Until then, bye-bye. Thank you.